shortly. So if you know, there are a couple seats I see still available. Folks want to grab one. Ooh, got quiet. Well, I was trying to figure out.
No, it's kind of here's where it's taped. Let's get it out of this.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming tonight. I am Mitch Martin. I am the Southeast Deputy Region Manager. We have numerous staff here with us today. I would like to point out the Region Manager is here with us today, Brett Ackerman. So he's going to stick your hand up higher there, Brett. So Brett's over there. So thank you, Brett, for joining us today and supporting this master planning effort. We have numerous community leaders with us today. I dare not call out everybody because I'm fearful that I'll forget somebody, but really appreciate all the partnerships that are involved with this particular master plan. The City of Trinidad, the county, TPL, TNC, GOCO. Really appreciate all the partners. But most importantly, I want to appreciate all of you. So thank you for all of your input throughout this entire master planning process. We can't do it without all of our partners and all of you, our citizens, and everyone that's in this room. So whether or not you've been involved from the very beginning or this may be your first time checking in on the process, we're really appreciative that you're here. So we're going to cover numerous things today. We're going to cover some of the design concepts, the phasing, and then the next steps that are involved with the master plan. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kevin, and we'll go from there. So,
thanks, Mitch. Before we get started here, we have Spanish translation available tonight, and so Erica back here in the back corner can set you up. Erica, is there anything you want to tell people about that available, having Spanish translation available? Because we have some technology here tonight we didn't have at the last public.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Erika Maldonado and I'm here with the San Luis Valley Language Justice Cooperative, and we are here to make this event to give the opportunity to Spanish speaking to join their language of their heart. So if anybody needs interpretation, I'm in the back, come and pick up a device and then I'll explain how it works in the back. Hola a todos, mi nombre es Erika Maldonado y estoy aquí con la Cooperativa del Lenguaje del Valle de San Luis y estamos aquí para crear un espacio donde podamos todos ser escuchados con la interpretación simultánea. Si alguien necesita, por favor véanme aquí atrás y yo les explico cómo usar los dispositivos. Gracias.
Thank you, Erica. Okay, well, welcome this evening. My name is Kevin Shanks. I am the project manager. I am a landscape architect with THK Associates. I want to first start by thanking the Trinidad State College for hosting us here tonight. But I want to run through and introduce the consultant team, and then we're going to dive into the presentation. So standing here to my left is Melissa Beatty with CDR. They were instrumental in our stakeholder and community engagement, leading that effort. Standing next to her is Bill Mangle with ERO Resources. Bill was our environmental resource planner. Let me see. Oh, stand up, Tony. Tony Boone with Tony Boone Trails was in charge of trail design. Where's Daniel Estes? Where are you, Daniel?
Oh, he might be out.
He's out front.
Daniel Estes was the guy that was greeting you at the front door. He's with CDR. He helped Melissa with all of the effort here. And then we have a couple other folks from our team. We have Julie Gamick in the back corner back there with THK. She's here tonight to talk about the Los Animas County recreation and economic study. And with her is also Carrie Tanner with ERO. She is also an environmental resource planner. Let me just think for a second. I didn't forget anybody, did I? I think we got it. Okay. What's really important that I would like you all to know is that I had the world's greatest team on this project. Oh, and this team worked as a multidisciplinary team. While each one of these people had a particular role, the whole team worked together to come up and help facilitate this master plan. There was one other person that was very instrumental in that team, and that was the park manager, Crystal Dreiling. I think everybody knows her.
Hiding behind the board.
But yeah, I can't see her from here, but our team probably spent about 80 days in the field, and Crystal was with us on most of those days. And so what you're going to see here today in this presentation is a recap of the public engagement effort, as well as a quick recap of the environmental work that was done that led to a lot of the design. And then we're actually going to show you some of the schematic design ideas for this evening. So with that, I think we can get started with the presentation. I kind of went over this already. We're going to provide you an update. This really is kind of the capstone or the final presentation of the master plan tonight. We'll review the schematic design. And then I should mention that the presentation will take about 30 minutes. But after that, then we're going to allow you to kind of break up, and we're going to have members of our team as well as members of CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, at the different tables to answer your questions more directly. Since it's such a large group, we thought that maybe it'd be best if we held the questions until the working session, and you can ask the people directly over the maps and things. It'd be hard to pass the microphone around. So that, let's jump to the next one here. Let's see, I kind of went over that. Okay. So now we're going to kind of give a recap and a review of the planning process, I think. Is that you?
Awesome. Well, as Kevin mentioned, my name is Melissa Beatty. Great to see everyone. I know a lot of you, but not all of you, and I hope to meet you tonight. It's been a really wonderful process. I wish I had a pointer, but I don't, so I can just kind of go over this high level. You'll see that we're actually where that kind of larger dot is, where we have the public, thank you, Kevin. That's where we are now, which is pretty far along in the planning process. Van White. And we've gone through a lot. So we've talked with the public, you all, with our stakeholders, partners. We'll talk about tribal engagement as well throughout multiple phases. So we talked about opportunities and challenges for this property. What do folks want to see, and what might be a constraint given the landscape? We've talked about draft concepts. So what are we starting to think about on site, and what might that look like? You've all seen a lot of these maps around here, thinking about a draft plan and how we start to determine where the trail's going to go and what do the trails look like. And then today we will present this kind of final master plan information. So it's not the actual plan, but it is the pieces that will be in the plan. So you'll see around the room and in this presentation, documentation of our maps and documentation of what the visitor center may look like, what the trail hubs may look like, what camping might look like. So we've kind of gone through this whole process with all of you participating, and we so appreciate that. Just a quick recap since the last time we talked with everyone, which was back in the fall. So we did have a fall meeting in 2021. Since then, we've had presentations to the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Leadership Team, Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission. We also have presented this information to our work groups, which are made up of many of the partners that have been mentioned already tonight. And we've had tribal consultation. And so this has been going on since the very beginning, the importance of building those relationships with our tribal partners. And we've had a few tribes come out on site, and their representatives come out on site talk about the historical significance, and have also had a few Zoom meetings and virtual meetings with them, and we hope that relationship will continue far into the implementation of the master plan. And then the last kind of update here for everyone, I know everyone is excited to get on site. Construction is ongoing, which we'll see here as we go along. So currently right now there is a contractor who's contracted to build a trail system. I think it's about 20 miles, give or take. 18 to 20 miles of trail, including what's already open. And so, and that includes a trail to the top of the peak. So lots of construction ongoing, and then you'll see later tonight there's lots more to come in the future years. Next slide. This is just a quick recap of how many people have been involved. We've been so excited, and this number will go up after this meeting, which is awesome. And you can see that we've had 518 people participate in our public survey. That's amazing. 270 online comments, many of those stories of people's interaction with Fisher's Peak. And so it's just been really wonderful to get to know all of you, all of your stories, and the connection you all have to this special place. And my final slide is just a couple photos of folks on site. We did do a few on-site tours in the fall with some of our work groups and folks who have been involved from the very beginning. And that was such a turning point to get people out into the field and talk about, here's where we're proposing the visitor center is. Listen, you can't hear the cars from the highway, and it's really pristine here, and you can see this amazing view of the peak. So getting people on site really helped us gather some of that input and some of that buy-in as to what our plan is. And with that, that's my short presentation. I'm going to pass it over to Bill.
Hey folks, good to see a lot of familiar faces and some new faces, so this is very exciting. Again, I'm Bill Mangle, I'm a natural resource planner with ERO, and I've been with Kevin on a lot of those 70 days on site, so we got to know a lot of what's going on the property and a lot of the spectacular natural resources that this plan seeks to both share and protect. As a lot of you locals well know that, this is kind of an image, an opaque image, or oblique image, I should say, of what the park looks like, this series of these rugged canyons spilling off of the mesas that really makes for this, not only this, tremendous topography, but that, from I-25 to the top of the mesa is 3,000 acres and 3,000 vertical feet in about 3 miles. And so it's steep and it's rugged, and so it really it's both a, designing a state park in this context is both challenging and exciting because there's so much diversity, both ecologically and in terms of experiences and what you can see in the park. From a biological protection standpoint, we use a lot of the great data that has been collected in the last few years, and a lot of the data collection and the science is still ongoing to understand that biological diversity on the park. These maps just sort of show a snapshot of some of the key habitats. We actually identified and mapped 25 different ecological attributes that contribute to the biodiversity of the park. And these include, first and foremost, the endangered species on the park. New Mexico meadow jumping mouse is known to occur in some of the creeks and springs on the park, and is suspected to occur in a lot of these areas. So it's a priority to protect that species and allow them to thrive or expand if possible. We have peregrine falcon and golden eagle nests along the upper rim of the cliffs. These are spectacular birds, and we want to make sure that they feel safe there and they're not bothered by the park development that we're introducing. Elk calving areas, the whole park and the whole region is elk habitat, but there are important calving areas in primarily the southern and the kind of eastern sections of the park that we're aware of. wetland and riparian habitat in this dry climate where, there's dozens and dozens of springs that pop out from below the cliffs. And so that is the lifeblood of this ecosystem. And so where these springs exist, there's wetlands, and then downstream there's the riparian habitat. That is the core for many, many, many species. Of course, there's the movement corridors and then the unfragmented habitat blocks. We want to keep big chunks of habitat for the wildlife to do their thing in the absence of human disturbance. So I'll get to that in a second. So the purple map. Those 25 habitat attributes were put together into a mapping composite to sort of illustrate the more or less sensitive areas that would be subject to park development. The darker purple areas are more sensitive and less suitable for human development. The lighter areas and the white areas are less sensitive and are better places to put stuff and to put humans. And so that's what that map tells us and told us throughout the planning process. And then the map on the right shows just some of the key things that we're watching. Again, that big green blob is the habitat that is the elk calving areas, or believed to be most of the elk calving areas. We have a buffer around the peregrine falcon nest on Fisher's Peak itself, which is that blue circle. A buffer around a golden eagle nest further south. And then, you show some of the streams that are known to support the New Mexico rainbow jumping mouse. So this information went into the development of management zones for the park. And this, both tells the planning team and future managers and members of the public what the emphasis is in different areas. And so, this is shown on the park maps throughout. And so it kind of goes from the development areas, or where you would want to put your roads and your trails and your trailheads, and the more kind of for a park, a heavier construction type activity. Those are the yellow. And then it moves to the pink, which is passive recreation, a little less intense. And then, that olive color in the northern half is what's called the natural zone. It's where it's like most public lands in Colorado. Trails, some facilities, but not much else. And then the green area is the protection zone, where wildlife and habitat protection, or resource protection in general, is the priority. It doesn't preclude trails or public access, but trails and public access are not the priority in those zones. What's cool from a conservation standpoint, if you look at those percentages, our development is 10% of the property. And whereas we have almost 60% of the property in the protection zone, which is, from a conservation standpoint, to me, it's really exciting. Similar information, I'm not going to go through all these numbers. We can talk about it more afterwards, but the kind of a spoiler alert for the plan is, I talked about habitat blocks of where wildlife can thrive. Under existing conditions and past land uses, there are well over 90 to 100 miles of ranch roads out there. And so, the landscape has been, chopped up by previous necessities. And so that has left, a fragmented landscape and an opportunity to bring in state park recreation while improving the wildlife habitat in some areas. And so what this map shows is the big green blobs are, once you have your trails and your public access developed, then really work hard to reclaim, restore, and abandon a lot of those roads so that they go back to a natural habitat condition. And so what that shows is that, we have, as we add the trails, which are shown, we're actually, a negligible, tiny decrease in undisturbed habitat on the park, again, which I think is really cool. And then those two big green blobs in the southern part, almost, 2,000 acres and over 5,000 acres. Those combined within the state wildlife area adjacent to the east gives us over 21,000 acres of adjacent habitat conservation. So again, in terms of striking that balance between what we'd like to think is world-class recreation and habitat conservation, excuse me. We'd like to think we're adding world-class recreation to this property while really minimizing the long-term habitat impacts by improving some of these habitat blocks and having a massive chunk of habitat that is really just for wildlife. And off to Kevin here.
Thanks, Bill. Go ahead. Okay, we've gone over this map at the last public meeting, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this, but this map's at most of the tables, so you can look at it. But this is basically the overall framework for the park. We've already talked about the management zones, but a few of the things that are on here, remember Bill had said the beige color is where the majority of the park is developed. Basically, we worked very much and allowed the land to kind of tell us what needed to happen here. And really, because of the ruggedness of this property and the uniqueness of all the different natural environments on here, the theme for the park very quickly became a wildland backcountry kind of experience. And so for those of you that have had the good fortune of being able to be out there and see it a little bit already, you know what I mean by how rugged that is. And so the reality of development is that to build roads, to build trails, to put infrastructure in this type of environment can have a pretty large impact on the environment if you're not careful. And so we worked very hard to create an infrastructure that kind of used some of the existing disturbance, some of the existing roads, and took advantage of a number of things that already existed from its ranching heritage. We can talk about kind of this in more detail at the tables, but I'm sure you're ready to kind of talk about some of the schematic design. So maybe let's just jump to that real quick. Okay, over here, where Tony is sitting, there's this map. What this map is the trail map. And you'll want to study this, especially if you're a hiker, a mountain biker, an equestrian. Basically, the trail, we have over 100, somewhere around 100 miles worth of trails. And these trails are broken down into different types of trails. We have hiking-only trails. We have mountain bike downhill-only trails. We have multi-use trails, and we have equestrian trails. And some of those equestrian trails are trails that you can ride side by side on, and some of those equestrian trails are single track type trails as well. And so the P's that are located on here, those are parking areas or trailheads, and I'm going to talk about those in a little bit more detail here. Down here in the very lower left-hand corner, the furthest kind of down here, right there. Thanks, Melissa. The furthest peak, that's actually at the park entrance. That's the park entrance trailhead. We're looking at taking advantage of the frontage road as part of the main access to the park. And we'll be extending that road on down towards exit 8, which is where the existing ranch headquarters building is. So we'll be extending the road down that far down there. And part of the reason for looking at that way was we kind of, from a historical standpoint and kind of give that ranching heritage a little bit of a nod, we didn't want to really, where the Crazy French Ranch sign is, we didn't really want to change that too much so that it still had the feel, that ranch feel. So creating an entry feature, obviously, and being able to stack cars would have a big impact on that. So actually at the northwest corner of the park, where Melissa just pointed, I think maybe that's on our next slide, right? Oh, okay, let me back up. In the master plan, this is the same park plan, okay, but there's going to be 3 blow-up maps where most of the development's happening, okay? So I'm going to walk you through these different areas. Area A is at the park entrance, which is where that's where the big coal pile is, okay, that's out there now, okay? There's a real opportunity in that area to interpret the coal mining and processing history of the region. And then Area B is Clear Creek, or where the existing entrance to the Crazy French Ranch is located off of Exit 8. And then Area C is down off of Exit 2, okay? And we're going to talk about some of the hunting access and equestrian access and some of the things that are happening down there. So why don't we jump to A? Okay, so now I just spun you around. North was to the left, north is up, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so up in the very top corner is the entrance to the park at the end of the frontage road. We're going to talk a little bit about the trail system in here and the trailheads. We are looking at a potential mountain bike course up here for skills course out of this local close trailhead. This will be the quickest place to get to the park. It is, at this point, kind of a single point of access. There's a trail that'll come in here, the road will come in here, there'll be a gatehouse here. Maybe you want to jump to that next slide. So this is what that might look like. So we are looking north, okay? What you can see off there in the distance, kind of where the haze is up high, that's exit 11, okay? That's where they're doing all the work right now on the new bridge and roundabouts. You'll come down the frontage road, and there'll be a gatehouse, okay? And for those that make the bad decision that they don't want to go on into the state park, but want to turn around, then we'll be able to turn them around and not have them go into the state park. We're looking right, what's right below us here, you can start to see some of the old coal piles and stuff right here. Right off the picture to my right is where the big coal pile is. So you can kind of see this entrance trailhead. And from this trailhead, there'll be a series of different trails that will connect to the Trail to the Peak system that's kind of under construction right now. And so you'll be able to walk out of this trailhead, you'll be able to mountain bike out of this trailhead, and also you'll have equestrian access out of this trailhead. I'll jump to the next picture. Okay, so this is the same trailhead, just looking south. You can see the coal pile, okay? Just to give you a better idea. So that ridge line that's up behind the coal pile, so Melissa, I know, just point up there the best you can. Keep going on over.
No laser
So
pointer.
actually, some of the trail that's being constructed right now is actually at the top of that ridge line. So as a part of connecting up this trailhead to the trails that are under construction now, we basically have to just make some connections up this valley up to the top of that ridge. This is a great opportunity, as I said, for some interpretation. There are a lot of foundations from the old mill here yet, as well as an old bridge structure, and a number of other things. One of the cool things we found in this valley was obviously when they were doing the coal mining or the processing, they did some lumbering. So there's actually some old horse log drag roads, where they drug the logs down. You can actually see them up there. So this will be a great place to do some of that interpretation.
That's where we also saw the KT boundary up in that section too.
That's right. You guys know what the KT boundary is?
Yeah.
Okay. I heard a no. You want to go ahead and explain it?
So when the meteor hit the Earth and killed all the dinosaurs, it laid down this layer of iridium or something like that. You can see it out on the Long Canyon Trail at Trinidad State, and we were curious when we were looking around here with so many days on the property, and we did finally find a vein of the KT boundary. Pretty cool.
It's pretty obvious when you see it because it's all sandstone and light colored above and below it, and then it's black with a white stripe through it, basically. It's pretty interesting. Okay, this is the central section. So can you point to exit 8, Melissa? Would you mind? Yeah. Nice job. So that's where the Crazy French Ranch sign hangs over the entrance gate. There's a number of structures here. There's the old ranch house, and I don't think we have anybody here from the Nature Conservancy tonight, do we? I do want to give them a shout out because they actually did some of the renovation work on the ranch house, which has enabled us as a team to have a workspace on site, as well as a lot of the researchers and scientists that have been on site that have been able to stay there. And I'm probably going to give this away. That's now where Crystal's office is. So, so that building will remain in service as a part of the park operations. There's several other buildings there. We believe a historic garage structure that's actually still adobe structure, and then there's a couple other buildings and a shop building in which that they're working out of right now for park operations. On up from there, you want to point to where the visitor center is. About half a mile into the park, that's where the visitor center will be located. We're going to talk about that in a minute. The main park road that's coming down from the park entrance that I showed you, extending the frontage road down into this area, will extend up to the visitor center and then past the visitor center up to these purple blobs. What are those? Those are the campgrounds, okay? Those are what we're calling the developed camp areas, okay? We're going to show you some examples of how those might be developed. At this point, I should point out, and I should have said this earlier, that this is very much conceptual design. This isn't necessarily exactly how this is going to get designed in its final configuration. It's to kind of demonstrate what the program would be for each of these types of facilities, how they might be situated on the site, okay? And we did this exercise as a part of making sure that we could actually build these things, again, because of over, I think it was almost 90% of the site is steeper than 10%. It's just incredibly steep. It's real important. You can't just draw a trail. You can't just draw a road and say hook up from point A to point B. Sometimes from point A to point B, to make the gradients work, it actually becomes miles. Okay, to actually, as a crow fly goes, go less than half a mile. Okay, so it's a pretty big deal to grade change on here. Anyway, you want to jump to the next one? So this is a trailhead that concept for what we're calling right now, because everything has not been named, but this is the trailhead that's proposed at the headquarters area there before you get to the visitor center, not too far off of exit 8, but you would access this coming in from the main park entrance. And just show you that, you know, the types of things that would be at a trailhead. A lot of parking for cars. We're also going to accommodate cars with RVs and trucks with horse trailers. There'd probably be potentially like a small corral here and some restrooms. And like the great trailhead that CPW's already constructed, many of you have been out there, that I'll just say that is the design intent for the trailheads, the types of structures and the types of signage that we're going to have at those different trailheads. Okay, go ahead. Okay, this is the visitor center. Again, this is only a concept. Okay, it's not going to necessarily look exactly like this, but this would double not only as the visitor center, but as the camper services building. So if you forgot your popcorn, you could go down here and buy some popcorn, whatever. I'm lobbying for popcorn. Yeah. So the idea is that it could potentially be a two-story structure. What we're looking at here is, you know, having it be a tremendous overlook towards Fisher's Peak. So this is actually facing, the glass is actually facing northwest, okay, to look onto the peak. It also potentially would have, you know, display space. It's where the park main offices will be, okay. probably be some type of meeting rooms available or meeting room available here as well. But the idea with the visitor center was to locate it far enough back in the park that you couldn't hear the interstate, which is an issue, okay? And yet have that very immersed experience in that wildland kind of backcountry kind of experience, okay? Because the reality is, a lot of visitors will never get past the visitor center. Most people go to the visitor center to find out about the park, hike little trail loops around the visitor center, which we're going to do. We're going to have accessible trail loops for those that have accessibility challenges, and people with small kids. And so it'll be kind of some of the typical stuff that you've seen at visitor centers. Maybe not unlike what you've seen at some of the national parks necessarily for the types of amenities that are there. Okay, jump to the next one. This is just a plan view of the visitor center. This is the road you see snaking through there is along Clear Creek, and it's the main access road into the park. It will be paved, okay, just so you know. Go ahead. So this is some more images of the visitor center. In working with Crystal, we're kind of thinking that we want kind of a southwestern motif to the architectural style, but more of a contemporary kind of style. So that's about as far as we've gone. That's what the master plan is proposing at this point in time. Okay. Let's talk about the camping areas here. Okay. Since we're in close proximity to Trinidad Lake State Park, we're going to have parking spaces that are camping spaces that will accommodate cars with RVs, but not necessarily the largest of all RVs and motor vehicles or motorhomes. Part of the whole sort of kind of thing that's been looked at is the connections between the two state parks. Through Exit 11, CDOT's worked to improve that interchange so that it can accommodate a little more traffic and potentially traffic between the two parks. But the developed camping will have the typical developed camping spur kind of thing. We've talked about different types of camping experiences in the developed campgrounds. We've talked about, the latest thing is hammock camping. Are you guys familiar with that, where you tie it up? So on some of these campgrounds, we have some fingers that extend out that you couldn't get an RV out to, but you could hike out to, and you could have a camping space with a hammock, for example. Go ahead. This is just a photo or a simulation of what that campground might look like. The areas that we chose are a lot of juniper pinyon scrub area that's kind of broken up like what you see here. And the idea would be to kind of place the campground in and around these trees and try to save those. Because it's so dry, we want to try to take advantage of what exists. We're not going to try to replant everything, okay? So that's the key concept here. Go ahead. The southern portion, Exit 2. Do you mind pointing to that?
Oh.
I'm almost done. She didn't want to walk up there again. I don't blame her.
It's I-25, so this is Exit 2.
Yeah. So that's Exit 2. Okay. Right now, the limited hunting tags that are allowed. This is basically where the hunters access the park. We're talking about constructing another trailhead here. This trailhead will be available for all recreational users, equestrians, hunters, mountain bikers, hikers, but the idea is that maybe it's by permit or reservation only, okay? To kind of keep the numbers down a little bit in this part of the park, because this is where some of our more sensitive, complete habitats are that Bill was talking about. So let's take a look at some of that. So this is how, that campground there might work for equestrians and hunters. Drive-through kind of thing. Let's jump to the next pictures, actually. So this is what it might look like. There's a meadow down there that is fairly disturbed. that we're thinking about placing that information, or placing that campground in that area. There'd be water here, and restrooms and some corrals also. Okay, so one of the other features is a thing called trail hubs. Okay, we have a lot of places where a number of trails come together. And so we thought that it'd be kind of fun to have a consistent design on how those look. And so it's also an opportunity for people to rest. There would be signage here for interpretation, probably some directional signage as well. Okay. This one happens to be what the trailhead or trail hub at the top of the challenge trail is going to look like. This is actually, the flagstone may not be quite that perfect, in a computer, the reality is the stone up there is not quite that perfect, but this is generally the idea at the top of the challenge trail and other places in the park. Okay. Phasing. That's the big question. How are we going to do this? And this is, Crystal and Brett, I'm almost to the end, so I'm going to turn it over to you guys here in a minute, okay? The phasing, we're generally proceeding from north to south, okay? Currently, we have the current phase of trails under construction that we hope to have them all done by next year sometime. But then kind of the sequence, and you can see that here is currently underway. The next one will be the north entry and trailhead and some of the trail build out, the visitor center, access roads, and the mid-canyon trails, the campgrounds and canyon trail build out, and then the exit 2 improvements. Now, I have them just lumped in 5 phases. That's probably not how it's going to happen, because it's going to be all about how fast or slow the money flows, okay? So you can look at those lists in each one of those 5 categories, and there might be 5 phases in each one of those, okay? But generally, that's how it's going to proceed, okay? Okay, I want to turn it over to Brett now, and Crystal for some closing comments. And again, I blew through that, and I'm sure you got lots of questions. Come and talk to us at the tables.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. I wasn't going to say anything because, I've certainly been involved in this, but less than probably most people in this room, honestly, and certainly less than our team here. I've been briefed frequently, and I've been down here frequently and been able to participate. But I did want to, since this is our last public meeting in the master planning process, just take a second and say thank you. But before that, I went and asked Crystal. I said, "You're going to bring us home, right?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Are you okay if I say a few words?" And have you ever had that conversation with somebody when they say yes, but they say it with like a question mark at the end? She's like, "Yes, okay." But I promise I'm not going to ruin all your good work here, Crystal, in one fell swoop. But I wanted to say that I wanted to mention, and a couple of these things have been mentioned throughout the process, but I wanted to mention that we get that. We get that this is your place. A lot of us are not from here. Some of us are, but a lot of us are not from here. And we're talking a lot about this place. But throughout our conversations, that theme has permeated, that this place really does belong to the folks here, and especially because it's such a special place, as the mayor is so fond of saying, that overlooks the town, and the town feels a connection to the place even before it was public land. And so we're so excited that it is public land, and that concept definitely has permeated our discussions throughout. So I also wanted to say, and I said this about halfway through the process, and I haven't said it about any other public process, and I've been involved in a lot of them. I've been very grateful at the civility and the constructive nature of this public process. I don't think it's the best one that I've been involved with, and I get that we're not always in the same place, even though we have a similar goal. And I mean that sincerely. I just wanted to say it says a lot about this community and this town. So thank you so much for your participation, which has been robust and also very civil at a time when we're not, exhibiting a lot of civility in the world. So thank you so much for that. I also wanted to mention just a couple things. We obviously can't thank everybody that's been involved in this program, or else we'd be thanking everyone. But I did want to mention really quickly your county and city leaders. They shuffle through a lot of things on their plates, and to us, it feels like this is what they're doing. It feels like, this is our full-time job. It feels like to us, it feels like it's theirs too. They've been that engaged, and we really appreciate the support and deep thought and blood, sweat, and tears from your county and city leaders that have gone into this project. Thank you. And I also would be remiss if I didn't tell this little story. So when we started, there were so many people that started and so many people that participated in moving this idea along from the inception. And I was a Johnny-come-lately. It didn't come from me, but I got to participate in the early stages. And I was in a meeting here at City Hall, and we were talking about how we were going to kind of cobble the money together to purchase the place. And we started with a suggestion from Jay Cimino about, maybe just start with a little bit. And in the end, I was in that meeting when we were on the phone with the governor, and the governor said, no, let's just do it. What do you need? We're going to do it. And so we'd be remiss if we didn't thank the governor. It's not just that the governor has supported this project. He personally pulled the trigger. He said, let's do it. What do you need? We're going to make it happen. And so, and with that, I just wanted to share those few thank yous. And again, thank you so much for all your continued participation. Years to come, we have a lot to do yet. We're very excited about it, and I'll pass it to Crystal to correct anything I said.
Thank you, Brett. It's so hard to follow him. He's so charismatic and experienced on the mic. So thank you, Brett. I just have to say thank you so much to all of you who have come tonight. I know that our nights and our family time is valuable, but I look out in this room and I see people that are like family to me. And so many of you have been here from the beginning with us, and it's not possible to say in words or communicate in words how valuable that has been to all of us up here working on this project and trying to do right by this property and by this community and by this state. But I recognize so many of you out there who have been my support team and our cheerleaders and our communicators, the community. So I just want to give a personal thank you to all of you. When they send us to Park Ranger School, they don't tell us how to plan state parks. So, especially not giant, beautiful ones like this that are so important to the community, like Brett said. So, this has been a team effort from the beginning. Brett called out the city and the county, but the Trust for Public Land, the Nature Conservancy, and GoCo have been with us from the beginning as well, and really making all of this possible and helping us provide hopefully a really good product. And then seeing this presentation again tonight just makes me think of the first day that I spent with our planners that we hired, touring them out on the property, showing them what I knew, which was pretty little at that point. We've been moving so quickly on this, but to think of that first day with Kevin and Bill and Tony, and think of where we are today and how far we've come and really how much more work we have to do. So hopefully you'll all remain involved and supportive of everything that we've done so far and everything that we have to do in the future. So I'll talk a little bit just about next steps. So tonight is our last public presentation. We will, our master plan will be wrapped up by our internal team and then submitted to CPW leadership towards the end of April or early May. And then we'll have to give them some time to review it, comment, and all that stuff. But at some point this summer, this master plan draft will be, the final plan will be available for public review and comment. And we think that will be on our website, the Fishers Peak statepark.com website. And then after that, like some have said, the construction continues. We also, all of our state parks have a management plan. And so a lot of what we've done so far and what we'll learn in the future will inform the management plan. Every state park has one. We've got one at Trinidad Lake, and so we'll be putting that together here coming up next. And then for tonight, as we adjourn, I feel like I'm in and out on this thing, but as we adjourn, you all will get to stretch your legs a little bit and visit the different tables around the room. They all kind of have a different theme. So we've got the visitor center and campgrounds over here. Then we've got trails where Tony Boone is. We've got habitat and environment over here, I think. And then Fishers Peak next steps back there, I guess. And then make sure you visit the Las Animas County Recreation and Economic Plan because that's kind of what's still to come. So, with that, thank you guys so much for your attention, and we hope that you stick around and learn more things and give us your feedback, let us know, give us your questions. So thank you. Okay, we will release everyone to go to tables. Just one comment, there have been a lot of questions about these materials. They will be up on the website following this meeting. Give us a week or two to make sure it's all up there.
Place to hide. Nobody sees me. I'm invisible.
Because I read
Visions of a lot of stuff happening. A lot of stuff.
Waited 40 years. You waited longer.
Yeah.
She's doing really well. Slowing down, but just plugging away.
Good that you get to be there with her.
It is. There's sometimes it's like 2 o'clock this morning. She got to get up to the bathroom. It's like, and we had to move into the carriage house because of our sewer. They're going to fix it. We found the problem. It was just the plugged line. But at least we had a house to move to.
Yeah.
It wasn't rented for the Airbnb, so I just blocked it off for the week and a half. So it's very fortunate.
So you get to be a tourist.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was Tom, say hi to the people. You're on YouTube.